SuperTalk Mississippi media production.
State Treasurer David McRae is returning record amounts of money to Mississippians, whether it's through the College and Career Savings Program or the hundreds of millions in unclaimed money awaiting your claim. Treasurer David McRae says get your applications and claims in today. Treasury.ms.gov.
MidDays with Gerard Gibert is on the air. MidDays with Gerard Gibert is powered by C Spire. Power your home or business with C Spire Fiber. To learn more, visit supertalk.fm/C Spire. C Spire Fiber powers SuperTalk Mississippi. Get ready to go beyond the headlines and join a meaningful conversation with people from around the state. Hello. You're listening to MidDays with Gerard Gibert here on SuperTalk Mississippi.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Midday SuperTalk Mississippi. I'm your host, Gerard Gibert, along with Rhino in the Element Wealth Studio, guiding you through the middle of your day with facts, fodder, and fine music on this
Friday Eve.
What the heck is wrong with the Canadians with respect to the U.S. men's hockey team taking home the gold? They seem to be a little upset about that, don't they? The petulance is shining through from our northern neighbors. What's up with those folks? They're mad about the hockey team getting recognized during the president's State of the Union address. They're mad about the overtime format. They said, we're not real hockey fans. We don't know what we're watching. Oh, little sour grapes.
I think my favorite was... If you really know hockey, you'll know which one was the better team on the ice, and it wasn't the American.
Oh, okay. Pay no attention to the score, right?
Why do they even keep score then?
Oh my gosh, man, they're all upset. Are the Canucks?
Just because they haven't had the Stanley Cup in a long time.
Well, that's true, and it's pretty much from a sporting perspective, right? That's their life. That's it. That's what they do.
Much the same way America at one point in time was baseball, and now it's pretty much football.
Yeah, that's true.
Where it's a sport that dominates the landscape and is played outside this country, but doesn't see anywhere near the popularity it does.
Oh,
hockey in Canada is huge.
That's right.
It's played in other countries. It's just not as big.
Yeah, good point.
So this would be the equivalent of if Alberta, like if they decided Cochrane, Alberta, Canada is going to have an NFL team. They're going to be the Alberta, whatever, the Stampede for their big rodeo they have up there.
Yeah.
If the Stampede joined the NFL and won the Super Bowl, you might have some upset Americans that a Canadian team won the Super Bowl.
Yep.
In the same kind of vein.
Well, nonetheless, it's a little beneath, in my view, reporters, journalists, to act so petulant.
You haven't been paying attention.
I guess so. Man, I know.
You don't hate those people enough.
Pardon me for having high standards and expectations. I guess that's what you could criticize me of. J.D. Bunkus, he's one of them up there in Canada. He went to social media and said, honestly, if you're an American celebrating that win, you're a casual who doesn't know puck. Totally fine. Grow the game. Oh, my gosh. Sour grapes a little bit there, dude? Longtime NHL player Ryan Whitney weighed in, said, this guy doesn't think we should celebrate chugging these tears. That's great. Another said, don't have to know puck to understand that the team with more goals wins the game.
I mean, we're not playing golf here. It's not lowest score win.
That's right. NHL insider and reporter Greg Wyshynski added, "Can someone translate this from Canadian tears to English?" That's a really good one. Well, they're upset because they're gold medalist and they were recognized by the president. They thought that was totally inappropriate. You saw that as well. Like, well, they bring him in there with all that fanfare. That means it was a good idea right there. That pretty much confirms it. Oh, man. Meanwhile,
it's almost like the profession of journalism is infested with bleeding heart liberals that can't actually acknowledge reality.
No, it's not an almost. It's a certain on that one. Well, I tell you what else is certain is that the Democrats showed their rears Tuesday night. I guess I wasn't aware. Maybe I didn't pay enough attention that when the president was recognizing even the young girl, the 5-year-old there in the chamber, America's military heroes, especially the individual who was injured during the operation in Venezuela, capturing the tyrant Maduro. They didn't stand and applaud for that. Did I miss that? Is that right? Is that what your understanding is as well?
Yeah, for his, I don't think there were many Democrats that stood. I want to say for the Korean War ace, they panned out
I think
the
you're
wide
right.
shot, and everybody was eventually standing for that long standing ovation.
But even
for
the 7-year-old, right?
I don't recall there being many Democrats standing.
Right, because Delilah's
I keep saying
law,
many because Fetterman tended to stand a lot when no other Democrat would, but that technically isn't all of them.
Right. The president called on Congress to restrict commercial driver's licenses, called for higher standards, wanted to name the legislation after a little girl, Delilah. She was injured at age 5. Remember that, when a tractor trailer crashed into multiple vehicles, and it turns out, no surprise, that driver responsible for that crash, taken into custody in 25 by ICE because this person apparently can't speak English, but's driving a damn truck. I mean, how many more examples do we need of that? So it appeared to me in researching that, Rhino, they didn't stand for that situation, that incident. When the president recognized the little girl, she was hoisted up by her father. It was a moving scene, in my view. And there in the gallery, folks around her, I'm looking at a picture of it right now, all clapping for her and her father. Marcus Coleman holding up his daughter, Delilah, during the State of the Union address. The president mentioned her injuries and recovery. I thought that was a great way to make the case for passing this law. Why do we even have to pass such a law? Every day I feel like, are we in La La Land? This is just common sense stuff. Why do we got to even have a dang law for that? Don't we already have laws? Do we have states, I guess, that are just issuing? Just sign up, get your CDL today, right? You saw that Secretary of Transportation, Sean Duffy, has learned that there's some of these CDL mills, as they are described. You just sign up, no training, pay your $500. They're self-certifying. Biden allowed the CDL training programs to self-certify. And you know that was all about pandering to illegals, making it easy for illegals to obtain commercial driver's licenses so they can drive a truck and injure a 5-year-old. That's disgusting and should not happen in this country. And the Democrats don't see fit to support such legislation. It is just mind-boggling to me. If I can find it, I saw a video, you may have seen this as well, of an illegal driving an 18-wheeler on the wrong side of the dang road. You see this? It's on video. They are driving against the traffic in an 18-wheeler. Is it just me, or do you sort of expect the best drivers in our society to be driving 18-wheelers because they do it for a living?
I mean, the best drivers would probably be the ones that race, but yeah,
Okay.
the best commercial drivers.
Right. Agree with you on that. They also do it for a living, though, right? Yeah. Race drivers do. But it's just insane to me that, guess where this happened? Minnesota. Are we shocked by that? We're going to take a break right now. Austin Sumrall, chef and owner of White Pillars Restaurant on Middays at 11:05, providing his perspective on the OABC problems, and then Representative Lee Yancey with an update on the 2026 session at 12:05. This segment of Middays with Gerard Gibert is brought to you by Covington County Hospital in Collins, where your health matters.
Middays with Gerard.
Good for America. Good for fans of justice and truth. Good for us.
SuperTalk, Mississippi.
This is what we stand for.
Trailers for sale or rent, rooms to let 50 cents. No phone, no pool, no pets. I ain't got no cigarettes, but 2 hours of push and broom.
Welcome back, everyone. It is Middays from the Element Wealth Studio. Are you thinking about retirement? Do you have a plan? Go to myelementwealth.com or call 601-957-6006 to let Element Wealth help you find your balance between income growth and guarantees. The C Spire text line, it, of course, wide open, 601-879-4395. Now, the Democrats have wasted no time, Rhino, in weighing in on the State of the Union address. Oh, they're so clever. And I'm talking specifically about the Mississippi Democrats. But back to the behavior of the Democrats during the speech. Not standing for a young girl that was injured by an illegal who was driving an 18-wheeler in possession of a commercial driver's license. Not standing for that. For a member of the United States Armed Forces who did his duty as ordered by the commander-in-chief and was injured in the process, not standing for that? What the hell's wrong with these people? Can't you put your politics aside? No.
Not for a single second.
Not for a second.
Or you get ostracized.
And it's all about their deep contempt for one person. All about that. They can't get past that. You're a weak person if you can't. You really are. If you can't distinguish, discern, differentiate, this wasn't about him. This was about a member of the United States military, about an American citizen who was injured. My gosh, a young girl, a child.
And the sad part is that a sizable portion of their disdain for Trump comes simply from the fact that they got overconfident with a bad candidate in Hillary Clinton.
I think you're right about that. So I would say that really what they showed in their sitting and their lack of any body English or gesture or clapping or expression on their faces or standing, you know what they sat for and failed to stand for? They really sat against, I guess is what I would say. Sat against rather than standing for lower taxes, less regulations, lower gas and food prices, economic growth, closed borders, and peace abroad. Those were the underlying themes of the message delivered by the president. They're against all that, I guess. That's the only thing I could conclude from it. Now, I had on social media, someone posted on one of the sites that I manage this stupid graph showing the impact of the One Big Beautiful Bill Act from an income tax perspective on the various ranges of income, showing that all the folks on the lower end of the scale were negatively impacted. Literally projecting the message that the fake message that the folks on the lower end of the income scale were harmed by this policy from a tax perspective, paying more taxes, and that those on the higher income ranges benefited. And I know that's a very popular.
But somebody put it in a chart on the internet, Gerard.
Oh, I see. So what they did, and and when I see that stuff, I say, that ain't right. That's just not right. It's pretty simple math, honestly. So it turns out that this was something produced by the Institute on Taxation and Economic Policy, a left-leaning nonprofit. You're shocked at that. And what they were doing was using some sort of crazy math to factor in the cost of tariffs. And they included that in a chart that didn't say anything about that. You had to read, right? Something that people should do before they just take a chart at face value. Even in their own discussion, their analysis of the chart, the ITEP as it's called, they even said it. Yeah, this considers what they believe are the impact of the tariffs. Now, I'm not disputing that there have been some situations, some goods and services where tariffs have caused those prices to go up. But you know what? We have metrics for that. The CPI, the PCE, they don't exclude tariffs in those calculations. But to put a chart out there designed to drive a message that, look, the folks on the lower end of the income scale, they're paying more taxes as a result of this legislation, and the wealthier are paying lower taxes. That's just categorically false. I know I get upset about that because this is a situation, as you know, Rhino, that upsets me more than anything. When smart people, I'm going to give them the benefit of being somewhat smart, the ITEP, they know that people won't check this. They know the average person who wants desperately to believe, yeah, Trump's policies, they're hurting the lower income people. They're only helping the wealthy. That's what they want to believe for selfish political gain. Yet they'll call us greedy. No, that's greed. When you lie, when you act in a duplicitous fashion, when you deceive to obtain political power, that's greed. That's exactly what greed is. That's the poster child for it. And so I called them out. And they disputed it. Like, okay, well, just be stupid. Admire in your stupidity. You show me one person. Give me your data. I'll calculate it for you. I can do that. Give me your data. I'll calculate your dang taxes before and after. Because you know what you have to do? You have to return to the Obama-era tax environment because that's where we were headed. You don't think your taxes were going up? even at the lower end of the scale, then you don't understand how taxes work. And that's fine. You don't need to. But don't accept these lies and don't promote lies for political gain. That's just wrong. It's no different than Biden over and over and over again. You've seen it in Bernie Sanders and Liz Warren and the whole damn tribe. Well, the billionaires pay a lower rate than the firemen and the teachers and the police officers. Horse hockey. That's not true. Not telling you, oh, well, we're actually talking about the unrealized gains. We don't tax unrealized gains. So the source for this comparison is the United States Treasury, even the one under Joe Biden. It's readily available data. You just have to spend a little bit of time to understand it, but they'd rather just be dumb, honestly, about it because it jives with their political ambitions and their agenda. That's a major problem. And you're right. The internet has promoted the ability to make something look really nice. And this chart is a nice looking little bar chart, right? Look really cool. It's just wrong. Okay. Ran over. Quit taking advantage of people's, I'm not even going to call it ignorance, but everybody's not a damn tax expert. That's fair enough. I get it. On left and right, it doesn't matter. But don't take advantage of that. And that's what they're doing here. The president did it, the former president, with his, oh, yeah, the rich people pay a lower rate. That's just not true. It's not true. In fact, a family of four, Rhino, making $73,000 in this country. I did this the other day. I did the exercise. A family of four making $73,000 pays zero federal income tax. Zero. Like it or not, that's just the dang truth. Why is that? Because the child tax credit, the standard deduction rising, the rates scaling up somewhat. You factor all that in, you get zero. Heck, you get $6,000 of child tax credits. We're taking a break right here. Coming right back in the Element Well studio.
You know you're gonna shut 'em down, shut 'em down, shut 'em down, shut 'em down, shut 'em down.
From the Seabrook, Gerard Gibert. He keeps his classified documents right where they belong. Inside a Journey record jacket from the 1980s. Gerard Gibert, SuperTalk, Mississippi.
I never meant to be so bad to you. One thing I said that I would never do.
A big hit for Asia. Saw them front Journey a few years ago, Rhino. They performed that. It's pretty good. They're still cranking, man. That's from the 80s, I believe, right? Sometime in there. We're back with you in the Element Well studio. All right, so share with the folks what you were just telling me.
Oh, yeah. We got the news coming out about a former U.S. Air Force major that was arrested yesterday for providing defense information and training to the Chinese military. Gerald Eddie Brown Jr. is facing federal charges for willfully providing and conspiring to provide unauthorized defense services to pilots in China's People's Liberation Army Air Force in violation of the Arms Export Control Act. Brown served over 24 years in the U.S. Air Force, retiring in 96 as a major. During his career, he commanded units responsible for nuclear weapons delivery, leading combat missions and instructing pilots on fighter and attack aircraft such as the F-4 Phantom II, the F-15 Eagle, the F-16 Fighting Falcon, and the A-10 Thunderbolt II Warthog. Reporting has said that he was an instructor for the F-35 Lightning II. But if he retired in 96, you do a little more digging, it's like, oh, well, he got out in 96, went to be a commercial pilot, then contracted as a simulator instructor for the A-10 and the F-35. And he is allegedly being charged with going to China for the last couple of years and teaching them about the capabilities of the F-35.
That sounds to me like it rises to the level of treason.
Pretty much textbook definition.
Yeah. Something we didn't talk about the other day that you shared with me has to do with, I believe, someone that was waiting for an ambulance, right?
Oh, yeah, it was an elderly lady. I want to say she was 97 years old, 87 or 97. I don't have it pulled up in front of me, but elderly lady broke her hip and called. They sent a nurse, I believe it was, to her residence on the Isle of Wight over in England and said, yeah, you're one leg shorter than the other, so you probably got a broken hip. The ambulance will be here in 10 days to take you to the doctor to get it taken care of. And a couple of days later, wellness check, she had fallen, and within the 24 hours after that wellness check, she had passed. So she literally did not live long enough for the ambulance to get to her because the ambulance was going to take 10 days.
Well, that's your old Medicare for all right there, as it would be stood up here in this country that Democrats want. Absolutely incredible. On the C Spire text line, Jerry in Waynesboro, Epstein file update. In the Epstein files, it says that he, Epstein, had a prostatectomy and has no prostate. He has to take ED medication. The doctor that performed the autopsy after his suicide noted that he had an extremely enlarged prostate. We report, you decide. Interesting. Race car drivers are in a controlled environment. Real-world drivers aren't. Well, that's true, but I think the point that Rhino and I are making is they're still typically highly skilled at driving, even when they're on the public roads. They're usually going to be the best drivers. I agree with that. And I'm simply saying that those who drive an 18-wheeler, I expect the same. They go through lots of training the rest of us don't to obtain that license, except during the Biden administration where you just had to pay your fee. And because these organizations were self-certifying, they weren't delivering any services. You still had to get your CDL, but it does make you wonder if there was a little corroboration, right, between the mills and those who grant the driver's licenses in these deep blue states in particular, which is why we got this rash of
That's why you have certain suburbs outside of Indianapolis that have over 200 trucking companies registered at addresses in the suburbs.
You showed me that the other day. You know what would really upset me is if you told me they're getting some sort of government grants for these deals. I'm already on a roll on that.
I don't know that they're getting any government money, but they're definitely flouting government regulations because they're what's called chameleon carriers. Where they just, all right, well, if you're getting on to us, we're just going to move everything over to this other company and change the name. And it's the same thing, different day.
Ain't that crazy? Jason in Starkville says, NASCAR drivers only turn left, though. Well, I get it, Jason, but...
And that's not even really true anymore. They have a lot of road courses.
That's true. Yeah. Especially the Grand Prix guys. I mean, that's all over the place.
Yeah, but that's not NASCAR.
Yeah, I agree. I know. But still, I think I'm confident in my analysis that these are typically better drivers.
They're supposed to be.
Supposed to be, yeah. Certainly, you're unlikely to find one of them driving an 18-wheeler on the wrong side of the road. That's usually not something you would expect. Oh, man. I'm going to side with Gerard on the best driver should be driving the 18-wheelers. That's from Ricky in Aberdeen because they can do the most harm to the general public versus a race car driver. That's a good point, Ricky. I agree. I know we've all witnessed these folks. I mean, how adept they are at navigating those big vehicles. They're really good at it. That's why they don't see a lot of mishaps and crashes with them, except in the case of when they can't read English and because the DEI propaganda and agenda and ideology in this country has saw fit to give them a driver's license. Yeah, that's a problem. And so it's insane that we even have to address this and have to do something at the federal level, down to the state level, push down to the state level. Don't give illegals driver's licenses, especially those who cannot read or write the English language. I'd say that's pretty critical, pretty fundamental to driving a vehicle in this country. It's insane.
But they'll argue that they could just use a TomTom or a GPS device that will talk to them in their own language.
Oh, okay. I feel better now. Gerard, you don't have truck drivers, real truck drivers out there, and get steering wheel holders. Just look who gets. I don't know what they're saying here. I can't follow that one. That's from Joey the trucker. I'm sorry, Joey. I can't really understand what you're trying to say to us, man. Let us know. The worst part about the Democrats is that they have nothing but disdain for Trump. Nothing else. CC in Senatobia. Sure seems like that drives all their reaction. All of their statements, all of their little cute videos they produce, no doubt. Brian in Madison says, I was in a popular food restaurant in Madison the other day that was moderately busy, people dining in and waiting to go on to-go orders. I was waiting with about half a dozen others, and they called out an order for a DoorDash loud and clear twice. A lady said the guy beside her might be waiting for it. He showed his phone without being able to understand or speak a word of English, yet he's driving for DoorDash, same as the foreign California commercial truck drivers. Yeah, that sounds like a problem. So I wonder how they were able to obtain a driver's license. Maybe they don't have a driver's license in the state of Mississippi. I don't know. And maybe DoorDash accepted. I'm surely they have some sort of process where in order for them to allow you to drive for them, you got to prove you're
you got to do a background
driver
check,
and a background check.
Then
yeah.
you have the app on that phone and you sell that phone.
Yeah, you're right. Anyone can write their own story with data. You just have to be sure you know the parameters before you rely on it, says KC. And that's in response to this chart I was talking about earlier in the program that honestly misrepresented the impact of the tax policy incorporated in the Working Families Tax Cuts Act. The Democrats want to try to promote this idea that, yeah, all these savings went to the wealthy taxpayers in this country, and Rhino and I were talking offline. It's a point we've made many times. You can't give a tax cut to somebody who never paid any income taxes. And unfortunately, that's about half the country, half the households, according to official IRS data. By the way, not just during the Trump administration. That was the data compiled and recorded and published during the Biden administration there, Democrats. We're not making this up. Official IRS data. I've researched it. Feel free to do the same. I'm not the only one. There's a lot of people that write about this. You know that, of course, Rhino. And it's simply because the tax provisions, the tax policy, honestly, under the president, pushed more people off the tax rolls. They're the ones that gained the greatest. They don't pay any dang income taxes. They take advantage of all these various credits. That's all by design. We're literally supported from a financial perspective by a few thousand households. That's just the truth. They account for about half of all the income taxes paid. We're coming right back in the Element Wealth studio. Please stay with us.
The one body.
We interrupt this program.
Gerard Gibert.
Here we go.
This is huge. Huge news. Huge news. Huge.
You need to listen to this.
MidDays with Gerard. SuperTalk, Mississippi.
Welcome back, everyone. The great David Bowie. Heroes. Thanks for that, Rhino. On the C Spire text line, I will never understand the earned income tax credit when you earn nothing. Yeah, actually, it's a little misleading is the title. You do have to earn income to qualify for it. What wages, salaries, tips, self-employment income, all of those qualify. The maximum credit last year was $8,046 with 3 or more qualifying children. And also, you can't have investment income in excess of $11,600 a year. You've got to meet some adjusted gross income limits. You can't make a whole bunch of money. And if you don't have any children, you got to be between the ages of 25 and 64. So, and then the credit, it starts to phase out with higher income based on your filing status and number of children. So, interestingly enough, last year, the IRS sent taxpayers $64 billion of earned income tax credits with an average credit amount. This is from the official IRS site. The average credit amount of $2,743. The maximum for 24 was $7,430. So, and by the way, that was for the year 24. So 25, that's not out yet, hadn't been published. I'm quite sure that will be even higher. So you have to actually earn money. You can't just send a tax return in with zero income and receive the tax credit. You have to earn money. That's why they call it the earned income tax credit. I know it's a bit confusing. That's how it works. Josh from Laurel says, Gerard sounds like he's preaching one of those fire and brimstone sermons today. Yeah, I know, and I apologize if that bothered folks, but it bothers me when people take advantage of just the lack of knowledge, I'll put it that way, on certain subject matter, such as taxes. And they put together these fancy charts, as you said, Rhino. They see it on the internet. You know, it's got to be the truth. And it comes from what should be trustworthy, reputable organizations. But they, too, have an agenda. And they publish this stuff. And it's like, well, here's the headline. And if you only stop there, yeah, you go away believing the headline. But you got to dig in and go beneath the epithelial layer to learn that, yeah, you sort of manipulated that to promote a message that's just untrue. And that upsets me. It's taking advantage of the American voters and taxpayers who shouldn't have to, honestly, shouldn't even have to question the accuracy of that sort of data. But you do because everything's rooted in political greed. I'm just going to call it that. It's political greed. You're seeking political power, and so it's okay if I put a chart out there that really doesn't represent or coincide with fact. If it gets me what I want, it's the old ends justify the means, right? I need political power. That's exactly what they do here. They take advantage of those who perhaps don't understand at that level, that kind of data.
It's almost like there's an outsized portion of the politician population that suffers from the dark triad of personality traits.
There's no doubt about it. There's absolutely no doubt about it. And it's a shame. It shouldn't be that way. It's certainly counter to what our founders envisioned as to public service. But again, taking advantage of those who are unknowledgeable about certain subject matter is just wrong. What you should do when you have the pulpit, when you have the sounding board, you should do quite the opposite. Tell the truth. Distill the complex into understandable terms so that people can make decisions, informed decisions, rather than contrived and manipulated and distorted for your political gain. Galen Jackson says the the post office gets Amazon package drop-offs at the office, and many of the truck drivers can barely speak English and understand it even less. Also on the C Spire text line, my company sent out a bulletin Tuesday saying all CMV and CDL drivers must have English language proficiency, no exceptions. It's just incredible. I applaud your company for that, by the way. It's incredible we even have to do that. That rises to the level of, you know what, when you're born, you're either a boy or a girl. That's pretty much the way it is permanently, despite your efforts to manipulate your bodies. It ain't going to work. And just butcher them all up. No, that doesn't change your gender, your sex at birth. We're coming right back with Austin Sumrall. Stay with us. Your hour of Middays with Gerard Gibert is brought to you by the Mississippi Business Journal. Visit msbusinessjournal.com. Scott Coopwood, publisher and president.
Get ready to go beyond the headlines and join a meaningful conversation with people from around the state. You're listening to Middays with Gerard Gibert here on SuperTalk, Mississippi.
Welcome back, everyone. It's hour 2 of Middays from the Element Wealth Studio on this
Friday Eve.
It is our great pleasure to welcome now Austin Sumrall, chef and owner of White Pillars Restaurant and Lounge. Hey, Austin, thanks for coming on.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
So we wanted to get your take on the situation with the Alcoholic Beverage Commission distribution disruption. Hearing a lot of stuff out there from restaurant, lounge owners, also the package stores. Anybody that, of course, is in the retail alcohol business is struggling because they're unable to get product from ABC. What's it look like these days?
I think you hit the nail right on the head. That's the issue. Stuff that used to take a few days is now taking, almost a month to get in, and then you just get behind and you can't catch back up. And we're probably going to run out of Pinot Noir this week, which is a pretty crazy thing. I think from my perspective, you just kind of ask your customers to bear with us. It's definitely not the retailer's fault.
Yeah.
But I think that's who it gets taken out on, which is the hard part.
I'm surprised at that. So are you saying, Austin, that if folks are coming in and they're ordering a certain beverage and you don't have it because you can't get it from ABC, that they believe it's something that you guys did wrong?
Believe it or not, I think restaurants get blamed for a lot of things that are outside of their control.
Well, having been a business owner for 3.5 decades, I definitely get that. I understand. So
I got a bad review for rain last week.
Oh, man, I certainly understand. Well, I guess I'm just a little surprised because that's certainly been all over the media. It's been a big story here in the Magnolia State, and this is something that has cropped up from time to time. It just seems to be maybe this is the worst scenario of it that I can remember.
Well, I think you're definitely right. This is definitely not the first time that this has happened. We've had issues with it before. It does seem to be getting a little bit more media play this time around. So you would hope that people know what's going on. And I think that, anybody that's got any ties to the hospitality industry knows what's going on.
Yeah.
But we've kind of just been trying to educate our staff and, letting people know, hey, look, we're doing everything we can. We want to have your wine that you love when you come in for you. But for right now, you may have to try something different.
Yeah, I certainly understand that. So what are they telling you? What's ABC telling you at this point?
Well, that's, I think, the hardest part is that we're not getting a lot of communication just in general. and I have no idea like when, what the plan is to solve this, and or if there's any timeline, that they feel like they're going to get back on track. And I'll be honest, as a restaurant and bar owner, at least we have, a pretty good backstock, and we can suggestively sell other wines and other liquors to kind of get us through. But I think that it's the retailers, the bottle shops and liquor stores and stuff like that are really kind of taking this on the chin. I think that it's probably affecting their sales more so than necessarily restaurants. You would hope that if I say, hey, you can't have this particular wine, that we can maybe get you on something else. But that's just the idea, at least.
Well, I know it's little consolation, but you do have in your case other products you can sell, right? Other items you can sell, right. And the packaged liquor stores, that's pretty much it. I mean, they're totally focused and exclusive to that.
Exactly.
That's a bit of a problem, man. So, Rado and I were talking about this a couple of weeks ago. Explain to us the procurement, the purchasing process. Do you have to actually pay for everything you order, even if something's on back order and ABC is unable to deliver at the time of order in a regular time frame? If something is not available, you still have to pay in advance and just wait for them to ship it and deliver it to you? How's that work?
So typically you get charged for when your order is fulfilled.
Okay.
Now, I have heard that people are getting charged for stuff that's zeroed out.
Yeah.
But that hasn't happened to me specifically.
Okay.
But I have heard some of the liquor store owners say that. So our kind of approach to it is that we typically buy through stores that are regulated to sell wholesale.
Yeah.
And I buy through the state pretty rarely. And it's because of that huge lead time. So it makes more sense for us to, buy it through some store owners and things like that are willing to deliver to us. So that it kind of just helps on my end. So I don't do a ton through the actual state. We do some special ordering and some things that we have to buy directly. But so I have like even another person between, me and the ABC.
Okay.
Which does cost a little bit more, but it helps us be a little bit more flexible. So say like we do a lot of work with Lincoln Road in Hattiesburg. And if they're out of something, he may say, hey, we can, move you onto this, or we can, swap this out, that kind of thing. So that's definitely not an option that you have with the ABC. So that's one of the ways that we kind of help get around it.
Yeah.
But it ends up costing us a little bit more to do it that way.
Yeah, I understand. Makes sense. Have you been in touch and contact, Austin, with any senators or representatives just expressing your concerns about this issue?
Yeah, I have not. My list of things that I have to get accomplished in a day, that's gotten pretty far down it. And it probably will get to that point where people are going to have to start speaking up to get anything done. But yeah. Two restaurants and a hotel. I just kind of hold on for dear life most days.
I understand, and honestly, you shouldn't have to. I don't think there's any shame in that whatsoever. You're trying to run a business, and you just expect, in this case, the government just to make sure that they're doing their job, so that you can successfully operate your business. So that makes total sense. I think that's how most Americans feel. They don't feel the need and compelled I got to talk to government every day to solve a problem. Makes total sense. Have you talked to any of your peers? Have you guys talked about this situation? Or are you maybe trying to help each other out? I got some more of this than I need, and maybe I can help you, and you can help me with some excess stock.
Well, we haven't done anything like that, but I have talked to. We have a lot of friends, that are in all aspects of this business, including people that own stores, liquor reps and things like that. We're all kind of in this together. So there's a lot of talk back and forth. I talked to one of our reps today on the way to work, really just to kind of get her side of things and kind of how that's affecting their business, because they're, a company that imports liquor and wine into the state. So they kind of deal with a different aspect of the ABC than I do. Yeah. And, but they're having the same, really it's all the same issues. It's all timing. It's if I normally place an order where it's delivered in 3 to 4 days, we're talking about 3 to 4 weeks now. And it's, you hope that by the time it comes in that you actually still have the need for it and the, person that's willing to pay for it when it gets there.
Yeah. So just to clarify, it's not totally shut down. You are getting some deliveries. Is that my understanding is correct?
That is correct. Yeah, I mean it's still moving, but I think it's trickling out. Okay. I think that the total output that's being delivered per day is down from where it has been in the past, and we got behind in January, which at least from the restaurant standpoint is one of your lowest alcohol sales months specifically. So it's it's surprising to me that that's the month where it really kind of started snowballing, it's just going to keep getting worse. The demand is just going to continue to go up, especially as we head towards the summer.
Gotcha. Makes total sense. Well, man, I hope this gets resolved in a hurry. I know you do as well. This is affecting a lot of people. And not just the consumers of alcohol, but more importantly, those that rely on it for a livelihood. And I know you've got bills to pay and payrolls to make as well. So, man, I'm praying for you, and I hope we get this thing resolved as soon as possible. Austin Sumrall, chef and owner of White Pillars Restaurant and Lounge. Thanks for coming on, Austin. Appreciate it, man.
Yeah, thank you all for having me.
You bet. We're coming right back in the Element Wealth studio.
Is everybody ready?
I'm ready. Ready here.
Middays with Gerard Gibert on SuperTalk, Mississippi.
In constant sorrow.
Well, that's from the house band set list there, the Soggy Bottom Boys. Hot damn, it's the Soggy Bottom. You seen that, hadn't you? Oh, my gosh. That's a good one. Man, I feel for these restaurateurs and lounges. Gosh, dog it. The retail liquor shops. We got to get this problem solved. I know they're working on it, but, and I was telling Rhino on the break there that when I asked Austin, had he been in contact with his rep and senator, the truth is you shouldn't have to, right? Just do your job. I'm trying to run a business here. Hire people, make payrolls, pay bills, create wealth and value for society. Just do your dang job. We shouldn't have to deal with this. Totally agree. So,
but much like anything else the government touches, it turns to crap.
I want Austin and all business owners to know I've been in their shoes. You've heard me talk about that. And it's like, I never really cared about it until 2008 when Obama started talking about his plans for health care reform. That original plan, by the way, would have posed much more draconian requirements on employers than what ultimately passed. I know, Rhino, a lot of people don't realize what they really wanted. It makes what we got look like it came from the Heritage Foundation. I'm serious. What they really wanted was brutally onerous. And when I learned about that, I said, I always thought they're in the Capitol down in Jackson and up in Washington. Just leave me alone. I'll leave you alone. I'm running a business. And then when that came about, I said, I better start paying attention to this more. Shouldn't have to. You shouldn't have to. And Austin's no different than thousands of business owners in our state that shouldn't have to worry about this. But now it starts affecting their bottom lines, their livelihoods, those of their employees, their vendors. I know that's second-order thinking there. They don't get that. If they can't sell stuff and make money, well, then they can't pay other people that furnish goods and services to them. Incredible. Get this fixed, man. Please. This is hurting Mississippi. And then let's come up with something so this doesn't happen again. Man, oh man. On the C Spire text line, one of our listeners said, I'm in the repairs business. Illegals can't speak or read English. These truckers, when they come in the shop, incredible. For repairs on their trucks. They're driving these trucks. They can't speak and read English. This is asinine. It's stupid. Not to mention, you know this, they've driven the compensation down for American truck drivers because they flooded the market. And shame on the companies hiring these people. It's crazy to me that they would even think about hiring somebody that can't speak or read English. One of our listeners a second ago said, yeah, my company put a memo out saying, we don't hire people to drive trucks if they can't speak English.
And it was the argument that they drive wages down that Democrats used when they were fighting against W for being a quote-unquote compassionate conservative and being more lax on immigration.
That is so true. Unbelievable. There's so much fallout and such a range of negative consequences that result from ignoring that we have a border and that we expect our president and our government to maintain it and to protect our sovereignty. It's incredible that so many in this country would even support that. Of course, until it affects them directly. Then they sing a different tune, as you know. But as long as it's not affecting them directly, they feel so good about themselves. And I think I speak for...
That's the sad part, is some of them are so brainwashed that even when it impacts them directly, they find a way to twist themselves in knots.
Well, that's true.
And use circular logic out the wazoo to justify the insanity that they call their worldview.
That's unfortunately true. Unbelievable. On the C Spire text line, I know girls with multiple kids, no income, getting $11,000 back this year. I'd have to see that tax return. The maximum you can get on the child and dependent care credit is $6,000. And then you got the child tax credit, and there's some limitations on that. I'm not saying it doesn't happen, but you got the child tax credit where there's is it $2,000? Yeah, it got increased to $2,200 is what happened under the big, beautiful bill. And so you got again, it's two different things. You got the dependent care credit, and then you got the child tax credit. That's per qualifying child under the age of 17. Up to $1,700 of that is refundable. That simply means when you do your tax return, if you don't have a tax liability, you still can get $1,700 back from the government. So, something that I guess doesn't get stated, Rhino, is that the IRS, to a great extent, is in the welfare business. You think of them as administering and collecting taxes. They're revenue, Internal Revenue Service, part of the Department of Treasury. That's what the Treasury does. Takes in money and then dispenses it in accordance with law where it gets spent on various programs. But the IRS, to a great extent, has morphed into a big wealth redistribution machine because of all these credits. And that's just cash money that is paid by the IRS, even when you don't have a tax liability. And I don't mean you had withholding through the year and then you're going to get a refund back. I mean when you compute your taxes and you get to the amount of taxes you owe to the government before you consider how much you paid during the year withheld out of your pay, if it says 0, because we have this super high standard deduction now, and then you apply those credits, and the IRS says, okay, we'll send you a check. I mean, that's literally how it works. It's a form of welfare. What I say a minute ago, $63 billion sent in earned income tax credits? $64 billion. Yeah, that was 24. I'm sure it's up in 25. That's just welfare. How could you call it anything but that? It's what it is. And I know that I believe I should say one of the problems is that we do have a progressive tax system that's slanted sharply towards those who make more money. And we've literally removed people off the rolls, which I think makes the case for converting to a consumption tax. We could do it. We could do a consumption tax in this country, and in which case everybody would share in the responsibility, and we could eliminate the income tax. That's been talked about. And I don't mean, by the way, the fair tax, because I don't think that's a good plan and wise, because many probably don't realize that under the fair tax, you have what are called these crazy prebates. And all that means is, based on your income, you may pay a consumption tax on a retail basis, but the government's going to send you cash money based on your income. Oh, that wouldn't be scammed or defrauded or anything like that, would it? We literally could eliminate the income tax, and I don't expect this to ever happen, but we literally could if we would impose about an 18% sales tax. We could do it and replace the income tax and the capital gains tax, the corporate tax, and the dividend tax. That's not popular because it means, think about it, the 50% of the households that currently pay no federal income taxes, they would then be contributing to the Treasury whenever they buy stuff.
And the same people that believed the false chart that you were talking about earlier would believe the narrative that they are going to, quote unquote, raise taxes on the poor.
That's totally true. That is 100% true. What about a flat tax? Yeah, that's what we're just talking about. If you're talking about a flat tax on income, the reason that doesn't work, and I know that question gets asked all the time, is that, and this is not intended to be condescending. Please don't take it that way. But when somebody asks, you know this, Rhino, what about a flat tax? The response I always provide is, a flat tax on what? Because there are thousands of pages of IRS code that define income. That's the problem. Don't just think about the typical just wage earner that just gets paid through payroll. There are a gazillion other sources of income that are subject to tax. That's where it gets complicated. A flat tax on what? That's why consumption tax is much easier and much more fair approach. Coming right back in the Element Wealth studio.
From theseabrook.com.
Properly set all controls before recording.
All systems go.
The talk that keeps Mississippi talking. Middays with Gerard Gibert on SuperTalk Mississippi.
You should have been gone, knowing how I made you feel, and I should have been gone after all your words of steel. Oh, I must have been a dreamer.
Welcome back, everyone. That's the great Steve Perry from his solo album, Talking about his girlfriend at the time. Oh, Sherry. The race lady, she reared her ugly head again. You know, she was fired from over there at MSNBC, making over $1 million a year to spout her crap. Well, she was a speaker at an outdoor alternative State of the Union event. The people.
There were about 8 of those.
I know. You said the other day, any event that's got the peoples in it, you need to be leery of that. Sounds awfully close to the People's Republic and the People's Dist and basically communism. What if the shoe fits, of course. So she, of course, unleashed an expletive-laced tirade against the president. Did the race lady Joy Reid, we're talking about, of course, she, the former host of the Morning Joy on MSNBC, she describes herself, if I can find it here, as a cussing Christian or something like that. She said, yeah, here we go, I'm a, quote, church girl and cussing Christian who wants to, quote, reclaim the Christian voice from white Christian nationalism. I told you she was the race lady. We are not surprised.
He also tried to start a sing-along with the sparse crowd and wound up singing alone.
It's terrible, by the way. Yeah, you're exactly right. One user that was watching it said this was painful to watch. Oh, my God. Yeah, she was singing on stage and mocked over that. A reporter on the Washington Free Beacon, Jessica Kostaskew, said, secondhand embarrassment. Failed MSNBC anchor Joy Reid attempts to sing on stage at the Democrats' Sochi watch party, but no one joins in. Oh, my gosh. That really is pathetic. Meanwhile, here at home, what's going on here, Rhino, up in DeSoto County?
There's some questions surrounding the school superintendent of DeSoto County Schools and whether or not he broke state law by allowing non-school individuals access to taxpayer-paid-for school facilities to work on a political campaign.
That's pretty cut and dry. I don't think that's the only example of that, honestly, across the state. No secret that the school districts, the school boards, etc., they, generally speaking, don't want to enact any sort of school choice program in the state of Mississippi. And you know who else doesn't? It's the Southern Poverty Law Center, who recently took to social media to say public funds belong in public schools. In the past decade, private school voucher spending across the U.S. has exploded without regard for the detrimental effects on students, families, and communities. According to whom, Southern Poverty Law Center? I mean, have you gone around and polled every parent of every student who leveraged these programs to determine their satisfaction or lack thereof with them? Or are you just making this up? Our call is clear. Public funds belong in public schools. Do we have to go through that again? The use of public funds in the procurement of goods and services furnished by the private sector is pretty significant at both the federal and the state and the local level. That there may be reasons to oppose this policy. This is not one of them, in my view. Meanwhile, the governor and Bernie Sanders and the Democrat Party are having a bit of a spar over data centers. We got some sound here for you from Bernie Sanders himself concerning data centers.
But here's what I think, Chris, and it's the reason why I'm going to introduce legislation for a moratorium on data centers, and data centers are the infrastructure of AI. I think we have not a clue. We are totally unprepared for what is coming. And what is coming, I think, as you've just indicated, it is not just robots. Bezos at Amazon talking about replacing 400,000 workers, and other companies doing similar things. It is impacting entry-level jobs for college graduates. There is no profession out there that is not going to be hit. So I think you're going to see massive job loss. And I think also what you are seeing now is literally a cognitive decline among young people in this country. Their attention spans are worse, significantly worse. I worry very much what used to be science fiction, that the computers will take over. There is now a legitimate fear that artificial general intelligence will not only become smarter than human beings, they'll be able to communicate with each other independent of humanity and the implications of that. Bottom line is, I'm not a Luddite, and we have got to make sure, though, that AI and robotics work for working people, not just to make these billionaires even richer. A handful of billionaires, it's Musk and Bezos and Zuckerberg and Altman and Ellison and some others. The richest people in the world are pouring hundreds of billions of dollars into AI and robotics. Do you think they're worried about the implications of that for working people, the middle class? I don't think so. I think we got to take a deep breath. We got to slow this thing down. We got to work on international treaties with China and other countries. But I think people have not a clue about what is coming down the pike with terms of AI.
Wow. So, once again, Bernie probably doesn't think about the fact that he just used AI-powered data centers to publish his video there. I'm sure he doesn't. Look, does this technology, like all novel technologies, does it require some thoughtful consideration to ensure that it is implemented and deployed in an ethical, responsible, safe manner? 100%. Absolutely. But what he wants is just to stop. And you got to read between the lines with him, because he doesn't like the idea that people are going to make a lot of money off this. More than anything else, that's what he opposes. That's what he detests.
And I would argue underlying that is he doesn't like the fact that America will be leading the way.
That's a good point. Hadn't thought about that.
That's why he had to put in the whole, we got to have a treaty with China that we're not going to oppress them with our AI.
Yeah, that's a good point. That horse hockey. We don't need a damn treaty with China on this.
But he wants the communists to win because he's a cold-blooded communist.
That's sad that a sitting U.S. senator holds those views. I believe
Always
that.
has been.
Yeah,
he's been a worthless commie since the day he was born.
So the Mississippi Democratic Party has also issued a statement on this situation. This is largely because they're mad about the great success our governor has enjoyed in securing significant investments for data centers into the state of Mississippi, Madison, Rankin, Lauderdale, DeSoto, Warren counties specifically at this point. And they point to Illinois under J.B. Pritzker. They're taking a careful approach. They're advancing legislation to study the environmental and energy impacts of data centers, strengthen oversight so that communities aren't left paying the bills and aren't left to deal with unchecked pollution. Okay, that's fine. But what they're saying here is that, under the guidance of our governor, Tate Reeves, his approach is just to hand away the state piece by piece to data center companies. Hand away the state? Really? There's a lot of Mississippi companies, as we've discussed before, that are benefiting dramatically, and their staffs, from these investments, not to mention the counties, the school districts, the cities, the state itself. It's hard to even quantify it. It's significant. Just to say no is not the proper move. Coming right back. Stay with us.
Polyumpa, Mississippi.
Check it out. Let's do this.
The talk that keeps Mississippi talking. Middays with Gerard Gibert.
Let's get on with it.
On SuperTalk, Mississippi.
Back with you in the Element Well studio. Today on In a Mississippi Minute with Steve Azar, you'll hear an interview with Reggie Smith, who played 17 seasons in the major leagues, was a 7-time All-Star, and was part of the Los Angeles Dodgers team that won the World Series in 1981. You can listen to In a Mississippi Minute with Steve Azar today at 1 p.m. here on Super Talk Mississippi. On the C Spire text line, what I think Sanders is a loon. As a former professor, he is spot on that our young people are losing the ability to critically think and analyze information. Anyone who doesn't think so hasn't tried to teach them. I don't disagree with that, but I do not believe you can attribute that to artificial intelligence.
Yeah, that slide started long before AI was ever a thing.
Yeah.
Before it became a thing. It's been a thing since, like, theoretically since the 30s and computationally since the, 50s, but it just wasn't readily available.
Yeah.
But yeah, that slide was, it could be argued it was starting even when I was in school.
Yeah. So I would say that the problem is more an indictment of our schools, our education systems. And honestly, again, the dissolution of the traditional nuclear family, not across the board, generalizing here. There are a lot of single parents, moms and dads, who do a fantastic job at that. But in general, a child is less likely to be able to critically think and honestly succeed in life. We've talked about that many times before. There's statistics to bear that out.
There are multiple factors in that. I mean, you can point a finger directly at W.
Yeah.
The No Child Left Behind idea is good on paper, but in practice it has its faults.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. So I think that is a reasonable assessment by the person on our text line, but again, I think Bernie is a little over the top on his warnings about artificial intelligence. You got to, again, read between the lines. It ain't cause of that. It just doesn't want companies to flourish. It doesn't want profit and wealth to be generated by this explosion of artificial intelligence in our country. And in fact, NVIDIA yesterday announced after the bell, and they had a blowout quarter, but they're getting punished today on Wall Street. Now, I saw two analysts this morning discuss their report. One put a $300 by the end of the year target on it. What's it now? $160 a share, something like that, I think. So,
it eclipsed 200 yesterday.
Yeah, and then it fell this morning. So it's down precipitously today. But they had a blowout quarter and had a very rosy outlook. And then there are others who feel that maybe it's a little overpriced. But I did a little digging on that. This is kind of interesting. When you look at the price-earnings ratios, the Standard & Poor's is trading right now at 22x and is expected to generate 12% growth this year. NVIDIA is at 24. It's almost in line, despite its meteoric growth, with the S&P, and they're projecting 40% growth. So you can buy a stock for 24x and get 40% growth, or 22x and get 12% growth. They had an incredible quarter, and this, by the way, moves them into second place in terms of the greatest amount of quarterly net income. That's how strong their quarter was, coming up with $45 billion, I think, It was Apple that posted $42 billion, still behind the $53 billion in a quarter from Warren Buffett's company, right, back in 2013 or something like that. We were kind of surprised that. Yeah, the same person on our text line that was talking about the loss of critical thinking skills says, spot on with the education system, and I teach healthcare. God help us. Good luck to you and appreciate your service there. Tim and McGee says, whenever Bernie Sanders talks, it's always China. Jared says, Bernie is worried robots will become smarter than humans. They already are. My Roomba is much smarter than some of these folks. That is so true. Joey the trucker, no, that's not from Joey, I'm sorry. This individual says, it's exhausting being someone who had always had to pay in or gotten zero back from taxes, seeing my tax dollars go to pay for fraud and abuse, just being punished for working and being honest. I hear you. And, of course, the president announced the other night, Rhino, that he has appointed the vice president, J.D. Vance, to kind of oversee a fraud detection task force. I think that is a good idea. The Doge guys kind of got that started. But I tell you what I'm paying attention to is, we had Maya McGinnis on earlier this week talking about the federal budget and our deficit and debt problems. There is some momentum, bipartisan momentum in Congress to enact some legislation that would move us towards a 3% deficit of GDP target. Right now we're at 6%, so that would halve the deficit as it pertains to GDP. I think that's a good move. I hope they pass it. This would be something good. We're coming right back after Fox News and SuperTalk News with Representative Lee Yancey.
And now, another hour of the talk that keeps Mississippi talking. Middays with Gerard Gibert.
Begin your transition now.
Now on SuperTalk Mississippi.
Welcome back, everyone. It's hour 3, the afternoon portion of Middays from the Element Wealth Studio on this
Friday Eve.
We are pleased to welcome now Representative Lee Yancey. He serves District 74, Rankin County. He's the currently the chair of the House Business and Commerce Committee. Is that what you do?
That's
you moved
correct.
over. Okay,
That's
just
it.
want to make sure.
Yeah.
You play.
We call it the Taking Care of Business Committee.
Okay. You guys play on the chessboard, moving the committee folks around quite a bit.
Well,
the Speaker
Speaker took over, 2 years ago, and so he shook it up. And I had been drug policy under Gunn, and now I'm business under.
Gotcha.
White. Yep.
Gotcha. All right. So we are. Got about a third of the session left, roughly. I guess it's fair to say. We got a big deadline approaching. Where are we?
We do. We hit the halfway mark maybe a week, 10 days ago. We are in the process of trying to get the Senate bills out of our committee, out of the House committees by this coming Tuesday is the deadline. And then we'll probably have another week to take them up on the floor and either pass them or amend them or not pass them. So that's where we are.
Okay. So what are you working on? Are you working on some sort of ICE legislation?
So I had a bill that passed last week. Representative Joey Hood, the bill was in Judd A, and Joey's the chairman of Judd A, and he took the bill up. And I just had a bill that said that it significantly expanded and strengthened the state's prohibition on sanctuary policies so that it said that any state or local government entity, which included public colleges and universities, from adopting any or maintaining any policy or order or ordinance or practice or procedure that limits or restricts or bans or interferes with the enforcement of federal immigration laws by any person. So basically, if ICE came here and was doing their job in pursuing those who were here illegally, then no one could interfere with them in the performance of their duties.
Okay. All right. Well, that makes sense. I mean, it's odd to me that we even need a law for that. I mean, would there be tendencies, I guess? I know we've seen some of this to some degree in the blue states.
Trying to avoid what happened in Minnesota.
Okay. All right. Makes sense.
Just to say that we would not interfere with the federal government as they are enforcing the law, federal law.
Has there been any pushback on that?
Well, the Democrats didn't like the bill. It's in Mississippi, the state auditor did a report several years ago that talked about how much illegal immigration is costing Mississippi and how many illegal immigrants were here. And it was estimated that there was up to 22,000 illegal immigrants in the state of Mississippi that were costing us over $100 million annually.
Well, I'm going to be the devil's advocate here.
Okay.
Are we considering the amount of taxes they pay in that calculation?
Well, if you can consider it any way you want, but it costs money to educate illegal immigrant children in K through 12 public schools. It costs money to provide health care to them and their children.
I agree. But they pay taxes.
And it costs money to incarcerate them.
But they pay taxes.
And so they pay some taxes.
What don't they pay?
So they're paying sales taxes on what they
buy
right here. And
well, if they have income tax numbers and they're working, they're paying federal income taxes as well, and Social Security and Medicare taxes.
Sure. If they're being paid, not under the table.
No, I agree. Well, we have a huge problem with that in the state with legal American Mississippi citizens.
That's right.
We have an underground economy, and we lose a lot of income from that. I'm just trying to be the devil's advocate here in that sometimes we put these reports out there, and all we look at is the expense side. We didn't look at the revenue side. It's like producing a financial statement with the revenue part of it blank.
Well, the fact that they pay taxes doesn't change the fact that they came here illegally.
I totally agree.
And I want to just emphasize that we're for legal immigration, and we want people to come here legally to work, to live. But we want to know who they are, and we 100%. Want to make sure that they're not criminals and they're not dangerous. And when people skirt the law and you have an open border like we basically had under Biden, we don't know who's coming here. And so you have a certain percentage of those who are illegals, who are murderers.
No doubt.
And criminals that have been released by other countries saying go anywhere but here, and
we shouldn't allow that. Take
them to the southern border of the United States and let them go.
Completely agree with that. I totally oppose the fact that they entered this country illegally and they are remaining in the country. They shouldn't be here. And that Biden opened the borders up, created a huge problem as a result of that. Of course, a lot of people get all upset when you refer to them as illegals. Okay, well, you broke the law when you entered the country, so I think it's appropriate to refer to those people who broke the law as illegals.
Well, and occasionally when I get a speeding ticket, I've done something illegal. I've broken the law.
Yeah.
And there's repercussions for that. So
that's a little different than your existence inside the country,
right.
though.
Well, and think about us going to another country and trying this. Why don't we?
100%.
Why don't we go sneak into Iran or Russia or China and see how they like us being there? We've been very, very lenient with immigration laws. You see immigration happening all across Europe and Great Britain. And, in fact, Marco Rubio just gave one of the best speeches I've ever heard in Munich back on February 14th. And one of the things that he said was, in a pursuit of a world without borders, we opened our doors to an unprecedented wave of mass migration that threatens the cohesion of our societies, the continuity of our culture, and the future of our people. We made these mistakes together. Now together we owe it to our people to face those facts and to move forward and to rebuild. And I think you can look across Europe and you can see some of the ways that mass migration has hurt them.
Yeah.
And is basically stealing their culture and stealing their country. And
100%.
And probably within 100 years, you won't recognize Great Britain because it will be made up entirely of a majority of immigrants.
You're so right. My wife went to Europe with a group last year, a church group, and she remarked that just even in London, jolly old London, where you would expect to find a lot of English people, Englanders, and she said even the police officers or you could tell, are not from England, and kind of butchered the language. You just wouldn't expect that, and that's the result of just this mass immigration they allowed to happen. Yeah, we don't want that to happen here in this country as well. And we don't want to bear the expense.
And I'm not suggesting to being inhumane to anyone. I'm just suggesting that we should have stronger immigration rules, laws that say if you come to our country, then there has to be a process. And we have to know who you are. And I think at some point, there's a limit as to how many people you can take. There ought to be. And so we're just trying to, with these bills, we're just trying to emphasize that we do want to cooperate with federal authorities when they are enforcing their lawful duties.
Makes sense. Are you aware of any reports, and I'm not refuting you whatsoever, I'm just not familiar, any reports of ICE being really active in Mississippi? Are they finding illegals and removing them from the state?
Well, we keep hearing rumors, but they're like in the President's State of the Union speech, he talked about what ICE had done in New Orleans, what they'd done in Memphis.
Yep.
So they're all around us, and so we hear that there may be some effort to come into Mississippi at some point.
Yeah. I'm just curious how active, if at all, they've been here in the state of Mississippi, and what sort of efforts that they have undertaken to remove illegals that are among us. I didn't know if they were showing up where they may be concentrated, because I think a lot of folks see them out on construction sites and in the factories and so forth around the state. They may all not be illegals. They could be totally in the country on a legal basis and have legal status.
And then they would have identification that verified that.
That's right. Mm-hmm. Okay. So, and certainly the programs that we administer here, the SNAP program, the Medicaid program, the TANF program, all those things, we should ensure that those are being provided to only those who are eligible.
Well, there are taxpayers who are pulling the wagon, and then there are a lot of people who are riding in the wagon, who are receiving government benefits that come from the hard work of the taxpayer paying taxes that go into the general fund.
Yep.
And whether it's federal money or state money, it's all because of hardworking taxpayers in Mississippi. And we just want to make sure we've got more people pulling the wagon rather than riding in it.
Totally agree. I totally agree with you on that. All right, we got Representative Lee Yancey in the Element Wealth studio. We're going to come back and dig into some of the other legislative activity going on down there at the Capitol. Stay with us.
Rain makes corn, corn makes whiskey, whiskey makes my baby. Back roads are bogging up, my buddies pile up in my truck. We hunt our honeys down, we take them into town. Start washing all our worries down the drain. Rain is a good thing. Rain is a good thing. Rain is a good thing. Rain is a good thing.
The one. Middays with Gerard Gibert.
It is
on SuperTalk, Mississippi.
Welcome back, everyone. It's Middays from the Element Wealth studio. Representative Lee Yancey, our guest. So, talk to us about this legislation. You say you just got through committee this morning, right?
So, yes, this is Senate Bill.
Get your mic up.
Sorry. Yeah. This is Senate Bill 2202, and it's a bill that sets conditions on employers who receive economic development incentives, i.e. state grants in Mississippi. If a business wants state incentive money, it must agree to certain restrictions related to union organizing and labor relations.
Okay.
So to qualify for these grants, an employer may not recognize a union through card check alone. Usually what happens is they would have to allow a secret ballot election conducted by the National Labor Relations Board. And so the employees wouldn't be intimidated. When you go into the primary to vote for a Republican for a certain office, it's a private vote, and you don't have to share who you voted for.
That's right.
And that's probably a good thing, because you, as the person that you are and the person that I am, we're probably going to know every person who's running, and we don't necessarily want everyone to know who we're voting for.
Totally true.
And Democrats, when they go into the Democratic primary for the mayor of Jackson, they may not want everyone to know who they voted for. Secret ballot process protects everyone. Employers who receive incentives would also not be able to share employee contact information with a union without written consent from the employee. This includes home address, personal phone number, personal email address. They would have to give written consent. Also, the employer would not be able to sign a neutrality agreement with the union that typically requires an employer to remain neutral during union organizing efforts, and sometimes restricts what the employer may say.
I think it's good policy.
And so it's just a way to say we're going to protect state taxpayer dollars when we're attracting businesses. You know, for 25 years we have had the automotive industry left Detroit because of union activities, and because of the cost of doing business there, came to places like Mississippi.
Move south, yeah.
Nissan, Toyota, and they haven't missed a lick by being located in Mississippi, and it's been a great success story for us and them.
Yeah.
And so we just want to make sure that our state tax dollars are going to attract businesses that are looking for this type of environment where they have the flexibility to grow as they need to grow.
Yeah, and Mississippi, let's point out, you were saying off air, is a right-to-work state. That simply means that you are not required to join a labor union where one exists in order to work at that particular employer, for that employer. Some states are not. Now, many have reversed that. That is something the Democrats would like to honestly impose across the whole country. They'd like to make the whole country repeal, where we have, such as we do in Mississippi, those right-to-work laws.
That's right. And the kinds of jobs we've been attracting lately are these highly technical jobs. $20 billion XAI data center in South Haven, $10 billion Amazon Web Service project in Madison County, $10 billion Compass data center in Lauderdale County. I mean, in less than 2 years, we have captured the 3 largest projects in Mississippi's history.
Yeah.
And so we wanted to keep the momentum going. We don't want there to be rising union influence labor cost in our jobs, and we want to be competing with other states, because other states are passing these bills, like Florida, Virginia, Louisiana. They see the union
Virginia
going down. Yes,
yeah.
yes, and because they want to be competitive.
Yeah, that's right. Union membership has been declining in this country. I kind of think it's past its useful life, honestly. But this is something the Democrats would like to impose across the country, this card check idea, which would put the unions in the driver's seat. So this is good policy.
And it's a party line vote, and it'll be, it'll be all the Republicans for this bill and all the Democrats against it.
Of course, of course. All right, so somebody on the C Spire text line wanted to know about the ballot initiative. That's something we've talked about quite a bit. You got a colleague, Senator Jeremy England, that had a bill this year that would have restored it, but that bill went nowhere, and nothing's coming out of the House this year. So we still continue with a ballot initiative called for in our Constitution, but it's been nullified, so we don't have one.
Well, for the last 5 years, the House has had a ballot initiative bill that's passed and sent to the Senate, where it died of a quick, painful death. And this year, I think the thinking was, we're spinning our wheels, we're treading water. It looks like there may be some momentum with Jeremy England. Let's let the Senate send us a bill, and we'll just concur with it and send it to the governor. And it just didn't make it.
Didn't make it. Doesn't look like that's going to happen anytime soon, as far as I can tell.
So, and of course, when we do a ballot initiative bill, we have so many exceptions in the bill that you really can't do much with it anyway.
Yeah.
So
it's pretty much the case.
It's still something that's part of the House priority to get a ballot initiative passed, but it takes 2 to tango down there, and we're dancing alone on that one.
I think it's safe to say that you hear, as I do, you hear from your constituents, I just hear out there in the public, that folks would like to see government at all levels rein in the spending and and be a little bit more fiscally responsible. But you guys just passed a bill that would increase education spending rather dramatically.
We did. We passed a bill in the House that was probably larger than we've ever passed, with a $5,000 teacher pay raise, with an additional $3,000 for those that teach special ed. And I think it's significant that even with the House pushing HB2, which has had a lot of commentary, a lot of
good way to put it,
a lot of truth and a lot of mistruths that have been involved with talking about it. But I don't think anyone in the public school system can question whether or not the House supports public education. We've put our money where our mouth is. We are continuing to try to encourage teachers to teach, and we want to have the best teachers and the brightest, and we want to see our students thrive, and we want our teachers to be happy, healthy, and smart, and good teachers. And so we're trying to reward them, incentivize them, to others to go into the teaching field, to show that Mississippi is going to continue to prioritize paying them.
About $250 million, I believe, more than last year for all education.
I think that's right.
Yeah, so it that continues to rise, and you got Medicaid beating your door down as well, right? They say they need more money.
Between Medicaid and public education, you're looking at 75% of the budget nearly.
Right.
If you're throwing corrections, you're looking at those three are about 80% of the budget.
Yep.
So it's anything that we do, if we're going to cut government spending, it's going to have to be in some of those areas. And right now, looks like we're increasing the education and Medicaid. We're trying to make sure that only the people that truly need it are getting it, but costs continue to go up.
Yeah. And then we have the possible penalties handed down from the federal government based on the error rate in the Medicaid program, the SNAP program, and that could cost ultimately some money too if we don't get that cleaned up.
And so, ultimately, what happens to the legislature comes down to paying our bills and what are our priorities going to be. And we have a certain amount of money. There's no money tree down there. Even though we have taken in much more money than we estimated that we would. And we had a $1.5 billion in our CapEx fund beginning of the year. I think the Senate committed about $1 billion of that on the first day, but to PERS. And
right.
PERS needs some money committed to it, so I'm not knocking that. I'm just saying it sounds like a lot of money until you have these big items that suck it up. And so, we are trying to work together to wrestle out the best budget that we can that meets all these needs and keeps our PERS fund solvent while funding our major priorities in our state.
I know that the Speaker's priority, you were on with Richard a couple of weeks ago talking about your vote for HB2, the School Choice Education Freedom Act bill. There's been some rumblings, of course, that maybe he'll seek to continue to push for that, maybe even possibly work with the governor for a special session. Do you see any more action on that this session?
I don't know that we'll see any more action. This is just my personal opinion. I'm not speaking for anyone else. But,
sure.
But I think that we've made our point, and it was an opening negotiating position from the House that we were willing to negotiate on, and the Senate was not even willing to have the conversation.
Yeah.
And so that's where we are. And so, although they did file bills that had many of the things that were in HB2, they filed separate Senate bills to send back to us. And so, we may end up getting a lot of the good things that were in the bill. But you have to have things in a bill on an opening negotiating position that you're willing to shed, or you have no way to compromise. You have no way to craft what you want. So you always ask for more than you think you're going to get.
Yeah, makes sense.
So that's what we did.
Okay, well,
that's what I did.
We're winding it down, moving through those appropriations. Good luck to you guys on that.
Thank you very much.
You go in at 2 today?
We do go in at 2.
Sounds good. Representative Lee Yancey has been our guest in the Element Well studio. We're coming right back.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, man.
From the Seabrook
Come on.
Middays with Gerard Gibert
All right, we are back
on SuperTalk, Mississippi.
Mick Jagger and the Stones there bumping us into this segment. We appreciate, as always, Representative Lee Yancey. So I just got to tell you, he took some heat, Rhino, as you know, in his home county of Rankin for supporting HB2, the Education Freedom Act, because, as you know, that's one of the counties where it doesn't have a great deal of favor. The same is true in my home county of Madison. And I know we've beat that horse to death of all the various objections, and most of which I do not believe are grounded in reality. But nonetheless, you know what they say in the sales business, perception is reality. And that's the perception, and that's what you got to go with. But you have to tip your hat, do you not? And show some respect to someone that voted for what they think is in the best interest of the state. And I know that a lot of people say, well, you need to vote with what your constituents want. But you know what? That's not what our founder said, as you know, Rhino. The founder said you got to think about what's in the best interest overall.
You got to balance the two perspectives.
Right. That's right. You can't just be 100% guided by that. And, of course, if constituents don't like that, you kick them out. Well, in this case, I think perhaps
it's that fear of getting kicked out that tends to skew the perspective.
Well, in my opinion, that's how we got $38 trillion of debt. That's just how it happened, is fear of addressing the difficult problems and making the tough calls. That's why Social Security's going broke. That's why PERS is upside down. You can go down the list. And before we went to break, I was talking about the Committee for a Responsible Federal Budget. If there's one thing I just have to say, just being perfectly honest here, I was a bit disappointed in with respect to the State of the Union address. I would have liked to seen the president talk a little bit more about our deficit and our debt trajectory. And while I certainly applaud him for appointing the vice president to oversee this fraud task force, I'm not sure the formal name of it, but I don't think that matters. The bottom line is the president at least acknowledges, and to a great extent, you can thank Tim Walz for that. That's probably something Tim never expected, the governor of Minnesota. Probably never expected any of that would ever be discovered. And it was by a 20-something-year-old YouTuber, because it was just wide out in the open. Wasn't hard to figure out. And now we're seeing, as we talked about yesterday, reports from other states. And, of course, to some degree, it's happening here as well. I would submit to a lesser degree, because I don't think that we have elected leaders that are looking the other way and turning their heads on this. But given the error rate that we know we have with Medicaid and SNAP in Mississippi, yeah, we got some work to do. Now, the good news is our elected leaders know that. When we talked to the speaker a few weeks ago, he said that, yeah, we know we got to clean that up. No doubt about it. And so I think efforts are underway to do so. But moving towards a 3% fiscal target deficit and seeing that this is bipartisan legislation, I sure do hope that we can make this happen. But I got to tell you, and I don't mean to rain on the parade here and be a downer. I'm not optimistic about it, Rhino, about getting such a bill through. Representative Bill Huizenga, the Republican, and Scott Peters, the Democrat, they combined on a bipartisan basis to draft this legislation that would reduce and maintain the federal budget deficit to at or below 3% of GDP. Again, that would half it. It's on a trajectory, once again this year, in spite of all the DOGE cuts, in spite of everything else we've done, we're still looking at a $1.9 trillion deficit. And it's largely because, as we've said so many times, Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, they keep going up without any action whatsoever on the Congress because that's the way the programs work, as embedded in statute that requires 60 votes in the Senate to change. So hopefully they will get serious about this and pass this legislation and go to work. I certainly hope that is what happens. And there have been some statements made from some notable figures. The Secretary of the Treasury, Scott Bessent, I would urge President Trump to make public his desire to get the deficit down to 3% by the end of his term. I wish the president, in retrospect, would have talked about this during his State of the Union. Even Barack Obama, we would have a deficit to GDP ratio below 3%, which is typically the standard at which it's sustainable. How about that? So, just interesting. The Council of Economic Advisors, one of those members, Jason Furman, the right fiscal goal was to make sure the debt was falling as a share of the economy, which would require the deficit being below 3% of GDP. Even Warren Buffett, he weighed in. You know what he famously said, of course, I could end the deficit in 5 minutes. Just pass a law that says that any time there's a deficit of more than 3% of GDP, all sitting members of Congress are ineligible for re-election. I'm down for that. I'm totally down for that. Get this done. Get this done, folks. And if our delegation's listening, I'm exhorting them to get behind it, fall in line, and support this. I hope that will be the case. So, yeah, the bills on restoring our ballot initiatives, we talked about that in the state of Mississippi. That was a question asked on the C Spire text line. It just doesn't look like any of that's going anywhere. Jake in the Delta says, oh, there you go. Rhino took care of that. Appreciate that, Rhino. Talking out of both sides of his mouth, talking down unions and catering to the largest one in the state, the teachers union. Yeah, that's on the C Spire text line, says Jeff in Hattiesburg. I don't know that it's accurate to say that Representative Lee Yancey caters to the teachers unions. And by the way, the teachers union in Mississippi, Rhino, is not that substantial relative to other states. It's really more comes from this group called the Parents Campaign. They probably, I think it's fair to say, and that's not a union, by the way. It's just a bunch of people. Nancy Loom, she's the one that's heavily involved in that. It's fair to say they're more focused on education policy and more influential, certainly on that side of the Capitol where the Senate is. Would you agree, Rhino? It seems to have fairly good stroke and clout with the lieutenant governor, right? I think that's nothing talking out of school there whatsoever. I think that's pretty well known. So it's a problem, no doubt about it. Let's see. Hey, Gerard, ICE went to Chickasaw County from Houston all the way to Grenada, Mississippi. They couldn't house them all. I know, I've seen it. They walk around just like they are in their original country. That's D from Aberdeen in Mississippi.
Yeah, I couldn't find any up-to-date reports, on ICE deportations from the Magnolia State. But what I could find from last year shows that it was just under an average of 200 deportations from Mississippi per month.
200, okay.
Just under 200.
All right. I wonder if that's changed substantially since President Trump was elected for this second term.
You would imagine that number went up.
I would think so.
Year.
And look, I think it's sad that we have to enact law. Honestly, I support it. It's the right thing to do, but we have to enact law that says, hey, law enforcement, you gotta cooperate with federal officials, federal law enforcement officials. What? We have to have a law for that? That's sad. But that's life in Democrat la-la land, right? And the reason is, just like you heard Lee say, well, we've seen circumstances in other states where they're not cooperating. And it's not because law enforcement doesn't want to. Generally speaking, it's because the people they report to tell them, don't you cooperate with federal law enforcement. Am I right in that, right?
Oh, yeah.
I think
up to and including passing local statute and laws that say it's against the rules and against their policies to cooperate.
That's just
That's
right.
how you get sanctuary cities.
That's 100% right. But that comes from the lawmakers and those in control, even at the municipal level. It's not coming from law enforcement. I think it's fair to say the vast majority of credible law enforcement, those truly in it for the right reasons to enforce the law, it's just the law. It doesn't matter what my opinion is, it's the law, right? That's the oath you take. That's the way it's supposed to work. I think they would tell you, yeah, the law says you're here illegally. We got to get you out. That's what I'm going to do.
But feelings.
I know. That ain't the way it's supposed to work. Oh, my gosh. We got the final segment of Middays coming up next. Stay with us.
At Key Construction.
Middays with Gerard Gibert.
What? This is so
awesome. On SuperTalk, Mississippi.
We are back in the Element Well studio, final segment today as we are getting close to winding down another week. The weather is supposed to get a little showery, right, tonight, and then improve over the weekend, and teasing us a bit about spring, though it is March. We're in March, so that kind of launches a little bit. What do they say? What's the old saying? In like a lion, out like a lamb, I believe. So, and then guess what else is coming up? Daylight saving time. By the way, there's a bill. I think it's a terrible bill at the federal level. You know how much I hate that. They want to split it 30 minutes, keep it consistent. No, don't do that. Man, oh, man. Also, yesterday, you guys know that I issued an apology to Southern Pine Electric, read a statement from them about a text I read the day before on Tuesday that I deeply regret, made an error there, and just wanted to reiterate that. And if they're listening, let them know I apologize for that, and I look forward to getting someone from Southern Pine Electric, Rhino, on the show to talk about their Members Helping Members program. I think that would be a worthy discussion. So just wanted to mention that again. On the C Spire text line, Mo says, don't we have a law saying that no one in law enforcement or government in Mississippi is allowed to help the federal government restrict our Second Amendment rights? We do, Mose. It was the Second Amendment Preservation Act, and that was passed a couple of years ago, 23. This is when I think we really felt like the Biden administration and the Democrats were going to start to come for our Second Amendment rights. And so the state saw fit to pass legislation that says, hey, look, if they try to infringe on that, they being the federal government, you, Mississippi-based law enforcement, are not permitted to assist them in that effort. It's sad that we have to pass such law. It's crazy. We should be working together, not against each other. But when Biden was in charge, who the hell knows, right? I think that was the prudence of that particular legislation.
But it is the common understanding of Second Amendment rights that does seem to short-circuit the minds of those that believe that health care is a right.
Exactly right. And it's not.
Because they will bleat and scream and yell and cry and blather on about health care being a right until you start pointing out, well, if health care is a right and health care has to be paid for by taxpayers, then where's my government-offered AR.
100%. On the C Spire text line, thank you for questioning Yancey, Representative Yancey, about taxes paid by immigrants. It's important. Appreciate that. JL listening online today. And look, I want to be clear. That doesn't indicate that I in any way, shape, or form support illegal immigration and allowing illegals to stay in this country. I'm just saying that when we put numbers out there, I don't care if it comes from the left or the right. Let's tell the whole story. Let's tell the whole picture. This doesn't justify it whatsoever. But when you just looked at the cost side and not looking at the income side, look, our issue is we need the American citizens in the state of Mississippi to go to work, right, to earn income, to pay income taxes and pay sales taxes to power our economy and our public infrastructure needs and our education, not rely on illegals. And while it's worse in some states relative to ours, it's still, Rhino, alive and well here. You can't bury your head in the sand and say it's not happening in Mississippi. So that's all I'm saying, is that we have to share the whole picture and be honest about it. Look, it still is likely a net loss to us. And, you know, one of the things is health care. Now, speaking of which, and I know we're about out of time, but J.D. Vance, our vice president, heading up this task force just a little while ago, said, yeah, we think we can root out $300 billion of fraud in federally paid health care. That's probably true, the Medicaid program. But we got to be honest again here, Rhino. It's not just the people getting the Medicaid, it's the providers that are getting paid by Medicaid. They're involved in that fraud as well. You know exactly what the heck I'm talking about here. So
yeah, you needed one tonsil stick, tooth depressor.
Right.
And you build them for 10.
Yes, exactly. So keep in mind, Medicaid is not money paid to the Medicaid patient. It's money paid to the provider of the health care services for delivering the care to the Medicaid patient. And yes, we do have illegals that still under federal law, even after the reforms last year. If they go to the ER, they're going to get treated, and we're going to pay for it. There ain't no doubt about that. That's under the emergency Medicaid program. It's ratcheted up in its spending. It's been abused. It's also affecting us as Mississippi taxpayers because we're involved in some of that money as well. And that's all because Joe Biden opened up the dang borders. There's just so much downstream negative impact of that stupid ideological policy, because that's all it was. It was not grounded in any other fact or necessity. We are out of here today. Back with you tomorrow. Until then, stay safe and God bless everyone.
A SuperTalk Mississippi media production.